Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp.com, and I've been with them for a long time. BetterHelp is an online platform where we found that you can effectively communicate with your therapist. Now, you begin by filling out a questionnaire, and then you'll be matched with a therapist within a couple of days. And if that match isn't ideal for you, you can certainly make an adjustment there. Now, you're going to be encouraged to journal, and also they have the availability for group therapy on a wide array of topics, and I really like that. So as the need exists, go ahead and take the necessary steps to get the help that you need. And just know that BetterHelp has a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, so it indeed is a platform you can trust. There's a link below the video that will take you there. Hey, Team Healthy, glad to be here with you today on yet another of our series on called Unbound. This is where I respond to questions and comments in a way that allows me to kind of get a sense as to what's on your mind, and I really like it when you send these questions in. Today we've got a couple of questions regarding the covert narcissist, and it's so necessary for you to understand more fully what that covert narcissist is all about, because they can be so sneaky. And then there are times when you can just kind of be around a person, particularly for a long period of time, and you think, something's just not right here. I just have this sense that I am being played, but I just can't put my finger on it. Everybody else thinks that individual seems to be a decent person. We're going to get into all of that. So I've got two different sets of questions here. And the first one I'm going to use to kind of give us a sense of distinction about what's different about the covert versus the overt narcissist. And then we're going to get into that queasy feeling that you might have. The first person writes in and says, I would love to hear you talk about the difference between an overt and covert narcissist. I'm noticing that many therapists and certainly everyday people are unable to identify covert narcissists because they're very capable of feigning empathy as one of their manipulation tactics. Okay, that person's onto something there. Let's see if we can start right in and figure out the difference between overt and covert narcissists. Now, first and foremost, let's begin with an understanding that in order to truly appreciate what narcissism is all about, I want us to zero in on what we refer to as the shadow self. Now, we all have a shadow self. The shadow self is the things about you that the vast majority of people out there don't know about. And it may be negative, it may be positive, it may be neutral, it may be dreams that you have or experiences that you've been through or embarrassing circumstances or mistreatment that you just don't want to talk about. We all have something there. But the part of what makes a person healthy versus unhealthy is their willingness to be open about it. If you're an open person, if you're trying to be healthy, it's like, you know what, there are some things that I need to unpack and some things that not everybody knows about me, but I want to find somebody that I can trust and put it out there with. Sometimes it's obviously a therapist, but sometimes it can be a close confidant or your life partner or a family member that maybe have had some similar experiences with you, and you say, let's talk. Narcissists are in constant cover-up mode. Now, the overt narcissist and the covert narcissist do their cover-up quite differently. Now, let's kind of zero in and remind ourselves of some of the primary elements that are part of covert narcissism, and then we're going to give a contrast. The covert narcissists, I've got some notes here. They tend to be very socially dominant. They like being the alpha. And they like making sure that everybody knows I'm in the room, I'm here, and I'm in charge. Sometimes they can be charming. Sometimes they're not all that charming, but they can be definitely domineering. And they clearly are self-impressed and they're self-important. And it doesn't take much time for you to figure out, like, man, this person just has to be in charge and they don't want to hear from anybody else. They're highly controlling and very overbearing, and they have the overts have a glaring lack of empathy. Unlike what that person in the questioner about the covert, they have a glaring lack of empathy. They have no sensitivity. They can talk rudely and not even understand how it impacts you, or they just don't care, or they can bring up topics that just are embarrassing or it shouldn't be said in certain company, and they just don't care. They're very free with their advice and their directives, And then when they don't get their way, you don't have to look very far before the anger shows up. It comes out in a very strong and domineering way. Now, the covert narcissist. And by the way, all the while, that overt narcissist is like there's all sorts of things on the inside of me that you're not going to get to know, and so a part of their control is to maintain the parameters of the narrative, so that certain things about them are just not going to come out in the open. You're always going to be on the defensive. With the covert narcissist, they have a whole lot of things on the inside of them that are not all that great and good. But in their case, they really work hard to try to make themselves look more mainstream, much more so than the overt narcissist will. And they like to make themselves look friendly or appealing or accommodating, or they may say something like, I'm going to be the best coworker you ever worked with, or I'm going to be the best friend you ever had, or the best neighbor. And whenever somebody says that, that's a red flag. It's like, why do you have to tell me that? Just be it. And now one of the things that people ask is, well, are covert narcissists more the introverts? And the answer is, well, if you're introverted and strongly narcissistic, yeah, probably it's going to be covert. But not necessarily are all covert narcissists introverted, just like not necessarily all overt narcissists are extroverted. There's some broad generalities there, but there are always exceptions. For example, the covert narcissist can come across as being the one that slaps everybody on the back when they come in the room, and friendly, and you think, gosh, what a nice person. But all that tells me is they're just more clever in covering up their motives and their hidden agenda. These individuals also have a hard agenda, like I just said, hard controlling tendencies, but unlike the overt narcissist, they'll give the appearance of not having that hard agenda. They'll let you know that they're willing to be flexible and they want to be accommodating. They may do nice things for you and do you some favors, but all the while there's a scheme going on there. They're up to something. And this is what this person was talking about. They can feign empathy. They can feign like they're truly interested in you and ask very personal questions. And maybe they'll even talk about some of their own personal problems, making you think, wow, this is somebody that likes to be open. Now, what you'll notice with the covert narcissist, though, when they start talking about personal problems, it's not in a sense of them taking responsibility for themselves. Instead, it's rather than saying, I had a very difficult childhood, and I'm having to look at some of the patterns that are on the inside of me as a result, because I know that I could repeat what was done to me. That would be a little bit more of an honest taking responsibility insight. But if they say, I had a difficult childhood, they'll go into a lot of complaining about all the people that messed them around and how they were mean and how they were awful and they're trying to get your sympathy. But you'll notice that they don't really go into that, and therefore, here's what I'm learning, or here's what I'm going to do different in my life. It's a complaint session, and you can see that there's a heavy judgmental system. There's a lot of criticism that they offer, but they do it in such a way where they hope that you'll have sympathy for them. They can have anger. The overt can have a lot of anger, but a lot of times the covert narcissist, at least up front, is going to be more passive aggressive, stubborn, and non-cooperative. They'll promise to do something, and they'll have a great excuse as to why it didn't happen. And you notice, well, this happens more and more. They can harbor grudges and hold on to contempt, and maybe you don't even know that it's going on, but they're scorekeepers. They're highly shame-based, and when I say shame-based, judgment is their mindset that they draw upon. They felt judged. They don't want to ever be judged again, and they part of their shadow self is like, I've got so much resentment I don't want people to know about, but they're sitting on it. And as a result, you may not know about it until a great conflict comes along. They can be quietly condescending. They can quietly keep score. But when conflicts and strains and differences pile up, then they tend to be more and more obvious in the way they do things. They can be extremely dismissive, and they can suddenly just turn, and all the criticism they had about everybody else starts coming towards you. And there are times when they can blow with the anger, but many times they can be very punitive in other kinds of ways. And so really it comes down to them covering up what the overt doesn't cover up in the effort to try to look good, but it's all about posturing, and you continue to feel like there's something I don't know. Now, having said all of this, let's go to the second question, because this is something I want you to see if this has ever happened to you. This person says, can you discuss the feeling you get when you're around a covert narcissist? One thing I always felt was feeling so sad after I saw him because I felt he was always hiding something. It was a strange, unsettling feeling, like he was always playing a role while making me believe he was the real deal. It was so weird, and I want to know why the body can signal it before the brain, and how does it work psychologically. And this is one of these things where patience is such a necessary virtue as you get to know somebody. But let's suppose somebody comes along and they're really friendly up front, etc. But then it's like they never really talk about, some of the things from this part of their life, or whenever a difficult thing about their history is brought up, they'll say, I'm okay, I'm fine. And they don't really flesh it out. But you kind of get the sense that there's a discomfort they have, or there are broken relationships that they refuse to discuss, or they've had some mysterious pain and difficulty emotionally. It's like, nah, I'm good, I'm okay. But then when you begin to think, but where's the openness? The covert narcissist may not be as loud and all, but you just kind of get the sense there's a toe of annoyance or irritability, or they ghost you, or they kind of have a leave me alone kind of mentality, or I need my space, but they say that a whole lot more than the average person would do. That's when you know that something's going on. And then when you begin thinking, I just feel like something's not quite on the up and up, you can ask, or you can let them know, hey, tell me more about, you mentioned such and such, and I get the sense that there's more going on there than you're really letting on. What's that all about? And if they just completely close the door on you, then you know you're probably coming up with somebody who really has, excuse me, pardon me, who has a deep issue going on that they just don't want to tell. Now, again, I go back and say not all of us need to tell everything to everybody. But when you get to know somebody and you think it's going in a more personable and close and confidential kind of way, and they still won't do it, then that tells me they're saying, I'm very happy to know stuff about you, but you're not going to know things about me. And it's its own subtle form of one-upmanship. And so secrecy and evasiveness and all of that is much more the part of the covert. And when you pick up on that, then just know we're not going to have a whole lot of connection until we really know some of the difficulties. It's weird, but intimacy is built upon knowing the things that are not all that wonderful about each other, and loving and accepting each other, and having a knowledgeable way of knowing how to encourage each other based on knowing the negatives. And when the covert won't go into that space, pick up on the discomfort that you feel, or the inequities that you feel, and know I want it to be I'll share with you and you share with me. I want it to be a two-way street. So I'm hoping this can give you some things to watch for. And if you're in the presence of someone that you feel might be in more of that covert direction, listen to what your gut is saying. And rather than thinking, well, I'm going to give them everything I've got, but then it's not reciprocated, then you're in for some difficulty. Now, we're going to wrap here. I hope that these videos can help you a lot. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do so. Know that I am sponsored by the people at BetterHelp.com. I have been for a long time. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent for therapy. I spent my entire career before I retired as a therapist. If you have a need for to have somebody help you unpack what we're talking about, please go beneath the video and get the help that would be warranted. I strongly encourage you to do that. Now, make sure you go check out my website. On there we have my courses. There's a tab that says that. Each course has at least 25 teaching videos along with handouts, and they're very extensive. They walk you through in a very systematic way about anger games, about this is me having boundaries, Ready, Set, Connect, about having healthy connections, free to be finding yourself despite those controllers. And then in addition, you'll see another tab that talks about webinars, and they're 90-minute PowerPoint presentations along with my articles and my books. Now, educate yourself, and the more you know about this, then knowledge is power. And I'm hoping that the more you feel like you're onto it, then you're going to be least inclined to be a victim of their manipulations.